Good afternoon and welcome to a special Angry Alien Bulletin. I'm bringing this to you from my hotel room, if one can call it that, here in London, preparing to depart for the United States to cover the sixth flight of Starship, something I wasn't really anticipating doing, but got an opportunity through the generosity of quite a number of viewers, one in particular really helped out to get me to Boca Chica so I can cover this historic launch. In the meantime, well, this is the kind of hotel room you get if you don't want to spend a lot of money and you're right in the center of London. So yeah, there's my bed, there's the window, and bathroom over there. That's pretty much it. It's kind of Japanese, really. But enough about that. Let's get to the topic at hand. Immaculate Constellation. We've heard this over and over again, at least if you're a UFO aficionado. But what does it actually mean? What is it all about? Well, it's a government program, allegedly, that collected an enormous amount of information about UAPs, in particular, UAP encounters with military personnel. Encounters that were kept strictly classified, and the program, Immaculate Constellation, was kept a secret from Congress. Again, all of this is through a journalist who had an opportunity to make his case in front of Congress under oath. And I have to say, I believe the guy. I mean, he's taking an enormous risk by making the sorts of claims that he is, and the documentation that he provided in conjunction with what he had to say is fairly extensive, an 11-page document giving not only an overview of the program itself, but also specific examples of encounters between U.S. military personnel and UAPs. And these encounters are very intriguing indeed, because they suggest encounters with technology and craft that seems to exceed the capabilities of not only everything the United States has, but anything that realistically any of the United States adversaries might possess. China, Russia, nobody seems to have the capability to possess craft with the abilities described in these particular encounters. So I'm going to bring you all the details of this 11-page document and my opinions about what we can find in these 11 pages, just how legitimate it might be, and if it is indeed legitimate, if indeed all of this is the truth, what this could mean to the future of the UAP phenomenon and our study of it, but also the future of human civilization itself. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and take you through this document that was provided to Congress and give you my impressions of what's contained within it, because it's very interesting indeed. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get started. Quote, "This document is the result of a multi-year internal investigation into the subjects of unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAP, and non-human intelligence." I think that's important. NHI. So it's not just UAP, and it's also an assumption that this is not the result of human experimentation or some sort of experimental craft. But we will continue. This investigation was undertaken in response to urgent and credible threats to the public good and safety of the United States of America, and provided to Congress through the UAP whistleblower mechanisms established by the fiscal year 23 National Defense Authorization Act and the fiscal year 23 National Intelligence Authorization Act. The data consulted during this investigation and summarized in this report originate from non-public data held within the executive branch of the United States government. The author, whoever this author is an unidentified source, obtained access to this information while pursuing their lawful duties as an employee of the Department of Defense. This public version of the author's report was reviewed and approved for public release by the Department of State, Bureau of Global Public Affairs. The results of this investigation are deeply disturbing. Elements of the U.S. executive branch have conspired to prevent the U.S. legislative branch from exercising its lawful powers of governance with respect to UAP issues. The information provided by the author strongly suggests that the U.S. executive branch has been managing UAP NHI issues without congressional knowledge, oversight, or authorization for some time, quite possibly decades. That means president after president has been hiding this information from Congress. This criminal conspiracy keeps the elected government of the United States and its citizens ignorant to profound discoveries and dire threats originating from the existence of UAP, NHI, and their technologies. Unambiguous evidence demonstrating the reality of UAP and NHI have been made available to Congress by multiple independent UAP whistleblowers. This document is but one item of evidence brought to Congress. Much more exists and hopefully will be made available. So what is Immaculate Constellation? We've heard this term over and over again. What is it? Well, according to the document, it's an unacknowledged special access program, or USAP, that was established following the public disclosure of reverse engineering programs by Luis Elizondo in 2017. And upon disclosure to Congress, it was determined that this USAP and its collateral information have not been lawfully reported to Congress. Immaculate Constellation's primary mission is collecting imagery, intelligence on unidentified aerial phenomena, and reproduction vehicles utilizing tasked and untasked U.S. military intelligence resources. As part of a network of SAPs linked to non-human intelligence and UAP technologies, Immaculate Constellation acts as a nexus for collecting, analyzing, and disseminating intelligence on the activities, capabilities, and locations of UAP threats that originate from foreign or unidentified sources. Immaculate Constellation shows that UAP are operating around the globe, often in close proximity to sensitive foreign assets and locations. Now, Immaculate Constellation is not a single organization according to these documents, but instead it acts as a parent USAP with various child SAPs under its umbrella, indicating a high level of compartmentalization and secrecy. In effect, Immaculate Constellation serves as a central or parent USAP that consolidates observations of UAP activities detected by tasked and untasked collection platforms. Sophisticated internal information security controls are a major part of the Immaculate Constellation program, which enforces compartmentalization by detecting, quarantining, and transferring UAP imagery collection incidents before they are circulated within the military intelligence enterprise. So a great deal of effort is being made by Immaculate Constellation, again, if all of this is legitimate, to make sure that even most of the military intelligence community has no idea of the existence of this imagery. In conclusion, Immaculate Constellation shows that the U.S. government is not only aware of UAPs, but also foreign state efforts to replicate UAP capabilities. Now, Section 2 includes some details on U.S. government imagery intelligence. Some of the most interesting comes in the second paragraph, where it says, according to information collected from data sets available to the Department of Defense and reviewed for this report, provide compelling evidence for UAP which defy prosaic explanations. There is a large number of unique imagery sensors available to the U.S. military and intelligence community, including infrared, forward-looking infrared, full-motion video, thermal, and still photography. The multitude of wavelengths collected by these sensors have captured UAP characteristics that are difficult or impossible to observe with the human eye alone. Subtle atmospheric effects associated with UAPs are visible through the sensors employed by by the U.S. military and intelligence agencies, enabling unique analytic techniques. Boy, it would be great if some independent scientists could actually get access to all of this, if it does indeed exist. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the specific phenomena that have been observed with this equipment. First of all, there's the CENTCOM cuboid formation of metallic orbs. On U.S. government networks, there exists daytime full-motion video and daytime forward-looking infrared footage of a formation of approximately 12 metallic orbs skimming the ocean's surface at high speed before dispersing in multiple directions. The rapid and agile maneuvering of the metallic orbs were incompatible with known aerospace vehicles and were between 3 to 6 meters in diameter. In the opening segment of this footage, the 12 metallic orbs flew in a tight cuboid formation. The metallic orbs were in 3 vertical square formations of approximately 4 orbs each, arranged in a 3-pronged configuration, creating the illusion of a cube shape at distance. All of the orbs were white hot against the black cold ocean in the FLIR footage, and each sphere created a faint atmospheric distortion both around itself and as a heat shimmer contrail. The metallic orbs moved in this cube formation over the ocean for some time before rapidly breaking formation as pairs. The sensor platform lost track of most of the metallic orbs as they ascended in altitude and accelerated in speed, but maintained observation on a pair of metallic orbs, continuing the original trajectory of the larger formation. But then what happened to these orbs in the long run? Well, that is not thoroughly explained. But then we have the CENTCOM fast mover observed transiting over sensitive facilities. On U.S. government networks, there exists forward-looking infrared. From here on out, we're going to call that FLIR footage of a small, medium oval UAP flying at high speed and low to the surface. The footage begins as routine surveillance of a sensitive coastal facility when the oval UAP rapidly comes into frame as it flies above coastal facilities. The oval UAP then makes a rapid turn towards the ocean, where it is tracked by the collection platform. The oval UAP is tracked flying low over the open ocean at high speed before the track is lost. Then there's intelligence vessels positioned to collect on a reproduction vehicle. On U.S. government networks, there exists infrared footage of and imagery of a grouping of vessels engaged in intelligence collection at night in a specific area of the Pacific Ocean. In this footage, which was in close proximity to the vessels, a large equilateral triangle UAP suddenly appears directly over the ships. 3 bright points are seen at each bottom corner of the UAP, which is observed to slowly rotate on its horizontal axis. This rotation partially reveals a horizontal bar of sweeping lights. Intelligence analysis associated with this event specifies that the equilateral triangle is a reproduction vehicle and concludes that the vessels must have been aware of the reproduction vehicle, hereafter referred to as an RV, frequent use of these coordinates due to foreign pre-positioning of advanced collection assets at the exact time and place. After a brief period of hovering and slowly rotating approximately 500 to 1,000 meters above the ocean, the RV suddenly disappears and the footage ends. Then there's another equilateral triangle UAP tailing an unwitting vessel. On U.S. government networks, there exists infrared footage of an equilateral triangle UAP, approximately fighter jet sized, hovering less than 200 meters above a vessel in the night at a location in the Pacific. Intelligence analysis specifies that the equilateral triangle is a reproduction vehicle or RV of unknown origin. The vessel gives no signs that it is aware of the RV, maintaining altitude and bearing directly overhead. 2 lights on the underside of the RV are visible, while a third is blocked from view due to a slightly upward angle of orientation. Then there is a large disc that was spotted using clouds as concealment. On U.S. government networks, there exists footage of a large saucer-shaped UAP emerging from within a dense cloud formation. The saucer registered black hot against the white cold, with atmospheric disturbances caused by the saucer-shaped UAP visible. The saucer was between 200 to 400 meters in circumference and displayed symmetrical concavities on the upper surface. The saucer-shaped UAP emerges at a shallow angle, traveling upwards towards the outer atmosphere. After breaking above the cloud cover, the saucer-shaped UAP suddenly reverses its direction, descending partially back into the cloud cover, then accelerating rapidly out of frame and partially obscured by the cloud tops. This behavior was evasive in nature and implied that the saucer-shaped UAP had become aware that it was under observation by a space-based collection platform. Then there's a boomerang UAP, observed by pilot and sensor suite. On U.S. government networks, there exists FLIR footage of a swept boomerang UAP maneuvering at an uncertain altitude at a location off the eastern coast of a country. The UAP is tracked against clouds by the sensor suite of the operating craft. The UAP is observed rapidly decelerating to a stationary hover, followed by the sudden emission of a sphere of light from the junction of two wings, which expands to partially engulf the craft in a rotating sphere of light, at which point the available footage ends. Then there's the jellyfish UAP, apparently crossing the U.S.-Mexico border. On U.S. government networks, there exists FLIR footage of an irregularly shaped UAP flying across the southern border. The UAP appeared in FLIR to be modeled irregularly with hot-cold emissions and approximated a jellyfish or floating brain with hanging appendages in appearance. The UAP flew against the wind with no visible means of propulsion, maintained an unnatural rigidity in its movements and flight path, and maintained a comparatively low altitude to geographic features. In appearance and behavior, footage of this UAP violating the airspace of the southern border resembled the same class of UAP observed near Department of Defense facilities in Iraq and Afghanistan. There exists at least one compilation video of this class of UAP sourced from DoD Force Protection Assets, which uses this footage as a point of comparison. Of course, that's the footage I'm showing you right now. Then something called a supersonic range fowler intercepts U.S. Navy fighter. On U.S. government networks, there exists FLIR footage and radar data of a supersonic UAP of uncertain characteristics conducting a head-on intercept of a U.S. Navy fighter operating off the eastern seaboard. The UAP is observed emerging from a cloud bank at high speed and approaching the USN aircraft head-on, rapidly passing over the left side of the cockpit. Radar data from this approach tracks the UAP on its approach toward the craft, providing information on speed, heading, and elevation. Then a tic-tac was detected by a space asset in proximity of a vessel. On U.S. government networks, there exists OPIR imagery of a tic-tac UAP transiting through an area of the Atlantic Ocean. The tic-tac maneuvers at an altitude at or near local cloud cover, and correlated electromagnetic signatures were collected. In the available footage, the tic-tac UAP transits rapidly through the field of regard as it transits the ocean. The vessel's proximity in time and space to the trajectory of this UAP suggests foreknowledge of the UAP event by intelligence. Then it goes on to cover some of the common UAP UFO shapes that have been observed in this data set. You have the sphere or orb, and then you have a disc or saucer, oval or tic-tac, triangle UAPs, which were amongst the rarest UAPs reported in the data, most of the sightings being of equilateral triangles, sometimes with vertical stabilizers visible on the top of the UAP, and sometimes isosceles triangles are reported as well. Then you have the boomerang or arrowhead UAP, also being a rare morphology, but nevertheless something that does appear from time to time. And then one of the most intriguing, the irregular or organic UAP, such as perhaps this jellyfish one that defy simple geometric description, were among the rarest reported sightings. Shape-shifting UAPs also appear in the dataset, typically having a spherical or disc-like base form from which irregular geometries are seen to project. Floating brain or jellyfish UAPs are present as well, characterized by a central mass from which multiple arms or spars hang downward. Finally, combined shapes were observed, including cubes within spheres, ringed saucers, and various rectangular and cuboid forms. And some of the most troubling characteristics associated with UAP are some of the biological effects, such as feelings of unease associated with orb UAPs, and the more extreme effects being reported in conjunction with triangular UAPs, such as long-term psychological effects such as anxiety or insomnia, alongside the feeling of being watched or a shared awareness with the triangle UAP. And there are also examples of human intelligence reports on UAP. In other words, different than the footage, different than the imagery, but rather reports by military personnel. For example, a close encounter by a nuclear aircraft carrier's flight deck personnel. While on active duty in the Pacific, flight deck personnel working night duty experienced a close encounter with a spherical UAP of medium-large size. On-duty flight deck crew observed a small orange-red sphere maneuvering at high altitude above the carrier. Shortly after first observation, the UAP rapidly descended from high altitude to a position directly above the flight deck, approximately 1 to 200 meters. The UAP maintained altitude and matched speed with the carrier for an uncertain period. Observing personnel reported altered perceptions of time during the close encounter. The UAPs appeared to emit a soft orange-red light, which bizarrely did not illuminate the ocean or the flight deck of the carrier, despite the visual appearance of intense luminosity. The surface of the UAP was observed to be dynamic, roiling like the surface of the sun. The UAP took no reported actions during the encounter, only maintaining a close proximity to the carrier. After an uncertain period, the UAP suddenly shot into the air, disappearing at a point high above the carrier. Observing personnel felt as if they had snapped out of a trance and a sense of profound unease. The incident report concludes with a noting that the carrier had not responded in any way to what was perceived as a hostile interception by the UAP. And then metallic orbs intercepted F-22 fighters on an air surveillance and control mission. While performing a routine airspace surveillance and control mission in the Eastern Air Defense Sector, an F-22 fighter observed multiple UAP contacts at mission altitude. Moving to intercept, the F-22 pilot noted multiple metallic orbs, slightly smaller than a sedan, hovering in place. Upon vectoring towards the UAPs, a smaller formation of the metallic orbs accelerated at rapid speed towards the F-22, which was unable to establish radar locks on the presumed hostile UAPs. The F-22 broke trajectory and attempted to evade, but was intercepted and boxed in by approximately 3 to 6 UAPs. One UAP maneuvered in proximity, approximately 12 meters or so, to the area directly starboard of the cockpit. There, the UAP established a rigid spatial relationship with the F-22, maintaining its exact position and orientation parallel with the F-22's cockpit, despite multiple evasive rolls and maneuvers. Surrounded by the presumed hostile UAPs, the F-22 was forced out of the mission area under escort of the UAP formation. There are other examples of encounters and other paragraphs in this report that I could cover, but I could get to a point to where this video is going to be so long that the YouTube algorithm isn't going to promote it anymore because of how YouTube does things. So at this point, I recommend that all of you check out the report in its entirety. I have it linked in the description, but let's go ahead and move to the conclusion. The official disclosure of the existence of non non-human intelligences and their presence on Earth is a pivotal moment in human history. The nature of this information is of such incomparable relevance to the public good that it demands to be shared. Some may object and say that disclosure at this time poses too many risks. To them, it must be said that we will never be able to predict how individuals, families, communities, and nations will react to revelations of such magnitude. Moving forward, we must guard against the lure of authoritarian solutions justified by expediency and appeals to national security. The good in humanity will always triumph through time, and it is in moments of crisis that our capacities for achieving the extraordinary are discovered. Be not afraid. So, okay, all of this quite dramatic, quite amazing. But is it true? Well, once again, this report was delivered to members of Congress, and its validity was attested to by this journalist under oath. If it is subsequently determined that this was some sort of hoax cooked up or something along those lines, the consequences are going to be pretty cataclysmic for this individual. And he wasn't, as we all recall, the only person sitting there attesting it to the legitimacy of UAPs and non-human intelligence and their presence here on Earth. What do I think? I think there's definitely something going on. And I think that if this data exists, if this imagery exists, I think that an independent scientific team could determine exactly what we're dealing with here. Exactly, if it is indeed a non-human intelligence, what sort of intelligence are we contending with? What might their objectives be? And what threat might they present to our civilization? And what sort of opportunities do they offer to our civilization as well? And until we have this kind of open discussion and an open analysis of this data, if it does indeed exist, then our governments are willfully keeping all of us ignorant of the most significant scientific discovery of all time, and that's not good for anybody. Thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I would also like to thank Khalifa, my latest Patreon supporter. Thank you so much for your generosity. If you'd like to join Khalifa and others who have joined me on Patreon here recently, all the details are in the description. It definitely helps the channel out. I'd like to make a special shout out to Jen and Ed, who provided this incredible footage and compilation of footage of UAPs around the world. Amazing stuff. Thank you so much, Jen and Ed. I've got his stuff also linked in the description. Make sure to support his work, and as always, stay angry about space.